And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only podcast on the internet that knows that if you're going to invade Iran, you probably want a plan to deal with the oil prices.
I guess so. And the reason we know that is because we are doctors.
But not doctors.
I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And this week we are going to be looking at the UK's reaction to the Iranian war, and also this interesting phenomenon of the left telling Iranians how to feel.
That always goes really well, I find.
It really does. As we get to America, we're going to turn to what we are now calling Operation Endless Quagmire.
Right.
Trump's cabinet reshuffle, the Clintons' deposition, the American economy, and so much more. Starting on Doctors Right Doctors, starting right now. So, Patrick,
yeah,
I'm not even going to ask you.
Yeah.
Have you seen the news this week?
I spent the week desperately trying to avoid the news, actually. I hid under several rocks. I put blindfolds on. I stuffed my ears with newspapers. Did not matter. It turned out that the news came and found me anyway.
Yeah, you can't hide from the news this week. You can't try. I mean, no matter where you are, we are in it was day 5, day 6 of the Iranian war.
Of this, now, Chris, you say war, but I think we all know that this is a special military operation.
Yes, it is a special military operation because Iran never really existed.
Right, exactly. And so, and anyway, they declared war on us, don't you know?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. We
they totally did.
All of that later. But let's start with how the UK has been dealing with this. I mean, the UK is in this weird position, and part of it is because it's not in the EU. Part of it is because everybody thought Keir Starmer was the Trump whisperer. And
when you say everybody, I think what you mean is Keir Starmer.
I mean, the UK was
Trump whisperer.
Yeah, the UK was trying to portray Keir Starmer as this middle ground person who had, a way to get through to Trump. But obviously things have changed in the past, year, 6 months since, I guess, their last meeting, or they met last year, but at least in person. But the problem really is that Europe is taking a much harder tone against the United States' actions here.
Yeah.
And obviously America wants to do more damage and drop more bombs. And the UK is like, well, what do we do? And there's this thing, and we talked about it once before or a few times. It's called the Chagos Islands, and there's a base in the Chagos Islands called Diego Garcia. And the Conservative Party and Reform UK have had their, just as they say, knickers in a twist about the Chagos Islands, not for the reasons truly of the Chagosians, but because it is one of the few remaining pieces of the British Empire, piece of land in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, that's true. It actually is. Its position constitutionally in the United Kingdom is incredibly weird. It's an overseas possession, and it has it's a closest thing to an actual colony that you have in this day and age, basically. But they have been trying to deal with the fact that, the people who used to live there got, chucked off in order to build that particular airbase. And so the descendants of those who were sort of forcibly removed, they've been looking to try to get back there. And there's been a question about, do we hand it back? If we hand it back to them, do they form their own country? Probably not. So will they become part of Mauritius? And if so, how is that going to work? And so it's actually been this very complex and interesting legal question.
Yeah.
Even aside from the politics of, but also it's a majorly important base that is used by both the United Kingdom and the United States.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, is that there was a question of if the United Kingdom would allow the United States to use their bases to launch attacks from.
Right.
And initially, the United Kingdom had said no, which is a huge deal. And Trump basically said over time that we're not dealing with Churchill. I'm very disappointed in the United Kingdom for not doing what we said when we said it.
Well, Donald Trump seems to be under the mistaken impression that the entire world is his serf, that we are owned property of Donald Trump. And therefore, when he says we should do something, everybody should do it, regardless of who they are, where they live, or, to what monarch they happen to swear allegiance, as the case may be.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to swear allegiance to Trump.
Right, exactly. And so there is nothing but Trump, praise Trump,
Yes.
and all his works. But so it's this incredible perversity that they launched this war without any attempt to prepare the American people for it, without any attempt to build any political support for it, without any attempt to manage the outcome of starting hostilities. There are tons of people, American citizens, who are basically stranded in the region now, thanks to this. But it's indicative, I think, of this incredible lack of foresight, this lack of willingness to even think about anything other than power. And I have power and I can use power, and therefore everyone does what I say. So the belief that the United Kingdom would just say, oh, of course you can, we'll join the war as a belligerent on your side. Of course we'll go to war with you for no reason, out of nowhere, because you said it.
Well,
I wouldn't ask someone to move a sofa like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is Trump. This is the MAGA party, and that's who they everyone works for them, serves them, or is their enemy. And of course, in the UK, it's not a unilateral position that everybody is against the war. The Conservative Party, I believe, Reform UK, and others are actually in favor of the action because of the assassination of the Ayatollah. And they said, well, this can only be a good thing. Where this is the interesting thing that I've seen over the past week with Starmer and the Labour Party. First off, Starmer has been given massive breaks. There have been a bunch of very big stories that have come out that do Labour no good. An espionage story has come out.
Yes, I saw that actually.
Involving a Labour MP's husband. And of course, the outcome of the Gordon Adinton by-election, which we basically didn't talk about this week because of the war. So he's having, he's been given a crazy amount of cover and shielding from what should be a brutal week for him. But instead, he has the opportunity to gain the popularity in the country. And I think this is because of the Iraq War. Now, Labour's experience with the Iraq War, I think, is what's driving their entire position, because they eventually said, we'll allow, the UK to be used for defensive operations, right?
Right.
Which that could still mean bombing, or it might means shooting down
missile sites, etc. And to be fair, the Iranian regime, their strategy here appears to be, we need to fire all the missiles at everyone we can before the missile sites get blown up. So they've been launching attacks basically on their neighbors. They've been launching attacks on the UAE, going after not just sort of military sites, but also apparently sites involved with natural gas production and distribution, with the oil trade. And of course, there was also a Shahed that made its way apparently via Hezbollah to a British military base on the island of Cyprus.
Yeah, and that is I think still a mystery, because everybody thought it was Iranian, and then it's not Iranian, but then who was it?
Right. My understanding is it was a Shahed, right? And those are produced in Iran and Russia, since Russia also has a license to produce them to, kill Ukrainian civilians.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the most reasonable explanation here is that Hezbollah, who are allied with Iran, both being Shiites and, both being pricks, that Hezbollah had some Shaheds and decided that it was going to support the Iranian regime by attacking the literal Satan, which is the United Kingdom, even though the UK was not involved in the war at that point. So I think this could be easily explainable as Hezbollah goes beyond its brief, basically, as far as the Iranians are concerned. That said, the Iranians have been absolutely interested in widening the war in order to create as much chaos as possible, so that everyone else in the world is like, God damn it, Donald Trump, what the fuck have you done to our economies and to global trade? Please stop blowing things up now.
Well, which is an interesting place to be. Which is why there's this kind of disparity in the UK, where there's a people who are anti, the Ayatollah, anti the regime, and you have people who are like, yeah, sure, you took out a dickhead, we get that, hurrah. However, the last time we tried to do that, we did it in a place called Iraq and Afghanistan. And these things never, ever, ever work out like you want them to. It's never mission accomplished, even though you can put up a giant sign that says mission accomplished. When people are still flying sorties or have boots on the ground, the mission obviously hasn't been accomplished, or you have started a new mission immediately after the old mission, which makes no sense. So I this week I saw in the in Keir Starmer, somebody that I haven't seen since Brexit, who was very calculated and very organized. And he's just like, this is at PMQs. He's like, this is why I took the decisions that we've taken. And they're like, well, we're an embarrassment and we're letting our best ally down. And everybody was just kind of like, best right now. But
that is a claim.
It's a bold
claim and a half. Yeah.
But I mean, because on the other side of this argument, you had Kimmy Badenoch, who was arguing that, we should have been supporting the United States of America. But because Kimmy Badenoch doesn't really do policy well, she does Mean Girls well. Yeah, she does, laughing at you after your cat died. She does, she can twist that knife better than most of the labor politicians most of the politicians. But that nobody really wants that right now. Right. So when she tried to bring that forward, in PMQs, and it definitely didn't work. Now, I'm not saying Starmer, blew it away. I'm just saying that just her take, she can only have a successful PMQs outing when she's being vicious and mean and cruel. But ultimately, the stakes are low. These are high stakes. This is Iran. This is not, Venezuela. Yeah, this is serious.
This is a serious, that's exactly the word, right? This is a serious situation that calls for, both serious actions by the government and serious critique by the opposition.
Yeah.
And Kimmy Badenoch is all out of serious. Like, she had very low serious supplies to start with. They have been run down over the years, and she has not really replenished them, I'm afraid to say. So yeah, it's got to be a bit of a ball ache to be a member of the Conservative Party and to be in a position where, right now, we need to talk about, matters of war and, really important things. And, we're following Kimmy Badenoch,
Well, I mean, I think that she must be getting advised, but it's like she is the vessel through which the information goes through.
It seems.
Yeah, but she is the vessel, and she has to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
Politicians decide, advisors advise. So she's kind of stuck in this. Not even stuck. I mean, she is trying to take this. It's a belligerent neutral position. That we should have supported them, but like when you ask how, it's like because she can't be on the side of sending. I mean, when I moved here, we moved here about a year apart, really. But when I'm sure we both remember the daily videos from Royal Wotton Bassett. From anytime a British soldier was killed. They would come back to Royal Wotton Bassett and they have a long ceremony, and that was that was for a long time, almost every day on the news. They would stop the news, whatever it was, and they would show the procession down the high street of Royal Wotton Bassett. And that is not that long ago. There are people who, there'll be 10-year-olds who, will have maybe remembered the end of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so the thing is, Keir Starmer's kind of stumbled into a position where he's on the right side of public opinion for once.
Yeah.
And that's because Keir Starmer doesn't want Britain to get involved in this war. And also, no one in the voting public in the United Kingdom wants to get involved in this war. Like, this isn't like a great opportunity for Britain to seize by joining Donald Trump's, eruption of violence in the Middle East. This is the entire British populace, it seems, is sort of looking at this and saying, "Oh no, this is a bad idea. No. We want nothing to do with this."
This is just generally a terrible idea.
Right.
And you should immediately stop, because, I mean, this is horrible for everybody.
And the thing is, the same is true for the American public as well. Like, the polling on this is brutal for the Trump administration. I think it's like about a quarter of Americans are in favor of this. A majority are decidedly against it. And the rest are almost certainly Republicans who can't say that they disagree with your leader, but can say, well, I just don't know. I just don't know if this is a good idea or not.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, no. Guy, I've said my piece.
I've said my piece. Well, I'm glad you said your piece. I mean, basically, we have this situation where, I mean, the UK is between a rock and a hard place, because they don't want to be put in a Spanish situation where Spain literally told America to fuck off. Yeah. And now Trump is saying, oh, well, I guess we'll just cut off all trade with Spain.
Right, which is a wild thing to claim. And this, I know why he said that, Chris. Do you want to know why he said that?
Okay. You thought it was in Mexico?
No. I mean, that's very funny. I mean, maybe that's also the case. I don't know. But no, I think what happened there, the reason why he said we're going to cut off all trade with Spain, which is such a wild fucking thing to say about any country, much less an ally, right? Is that when the Supreme Court knocked down his, Liberation Day tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump had out a statement where he was like, this is ridiculous. It makes no sense. I'm allowed to cut off trade with anyone I want, but I'm allowed to raise a little bit of tariffs, for a treat, and apparently he thought that was like a reasonable thing to say, even if it were true.
Yeah.
But it's not. Like I'm not aware of any statutory authority the president has to just decide that, okay, well, I decide we're just not going to trade with Spain anymore, and that's that. I don't think he actually has that power. I have no idea how they'd go about enforcing it anyway, right? What are you going to do?
Oh, yeah.
Lock people up for importing a ham?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, this is just it's just talk, right? But he thinks this is the way that he thinks. He can just snap his fingers and things happen. So we'll keep an eye on this and how the UK continues to react to this situation. But let's move on to the second topic of this section.
All right,
which is I was seeing videos and I was being shown videos of Iranians who are like, dancing in the streets. Yeah. There is some Iranians. I don't know if you've ever seen a show called The Expanse.
I have. Yeah.
And you remember the I'm blanking on her name, but she was like the politician. I know
yes, she's fantastic. Yeah, she's a great. I've seen her in quite a few things. She's beautiful.
So yes, and so she is very much in favor of what's happened. She is very much one of those people who's now said, "Thank you, Trump, for doing this," and all that. And obviously, I feel two ways about that. I'm like, but I didn't put on her on her comments, "How dare you praise Trump?" Blah blah blah. Right. Yeah. The problem is that a lot of people on the left I've seen and I've not been shown have basically gone onto Iranian sites and have condemned them for thanking Trump for killing the dictator. And I mean, it's just this horrible thing that the left does, where they're just like, "Don't you understand what this means now that the Ayatollah is dead? Don't you get it, Iranians?" And you're like, bro, like, yeah, of course they get it because they fucking live there. Where the fuck do you live, right?
Yeah. They like. I think part of it is just sort of the incredible solipsism of being an American. So it's. America's a very large country. It's entirely possible to live your entire life as an American, never leaving the United States, while still also traveling thousands of miles away. Yeah, and so like it can be more difficult, I think, for some Americans to recognize that there's a whole world out there, and it is not all the same, right? So I think part of it is like Americans tend to think our politics, that is America's politics, matter. That's the real thing. And everything else is kind of like a reflection of it, right? So, and I think that's how, as a left-wing American, you might convince yourself that these Iranians need to be put straight on, who Donald Trump is, because it's really important that Iranians know that Donald Trump is a bad man. And for the record, in my opinion, Donald Trump is an incredibly bad man. And in my opinion, him declaring war on Iran without any congressional authorization is a step towards dictatorship. Like, this is profoundly bad for the United States. Yeah. It is not the case that the death of the supreme leader is bad for the Iranian opposition, particularly. Like, if you are an Iranian who has been suffering under this regime, and you are fucking delighted at the fact that a bunch of high mucky-mucks in the regime have just got blowed the fuck up. Yeah, you get to feel pretty good about that. You get to enjoy that. Like, that's you can take the win on that, I think. I think you're right. And I mean, obviously that's the case. But this is the other thing that was popping in my head. I'm like, this is why outside of war, you do not get involved in foreign regime change. Yeah, because as I was explaining to people, like in other times, if country A was at a civil war
and it looked like one side was winning, and then country X that used to be that used to be the owner of that country, they can help them try to overthrow or support the regime, but you never ever are the person who actually puts the former leader in handcuffs. You don't think about the changes which are controversial, and I'm not giving value judgments on them, but if you look at Iraq, did the Americans pick up Saddam? No. The Iraqis put him on trial.
Right.
When you look at Libya, did the Americans or Europeans kill Gaddafi? No, the Libyans killed Gaddafi. Right. Now, you can explain how they got them and how they're put in there and how did they get them and all that. But it is a brutal political fact or geopolitical fact, really, that you need that optic of having your own people do the thing. Right. Kills the entire ability for somebody to say, well, you don't really know what Donald Trump is. So when America murders a foreign leader and then basically demands praise for it, you're just like, well, you've now also inserted the politics of that person into the action, which now takes away from kind of it being that that country's individual thing, and now it's two countries' very public thing where you took the action on, not even on behalf, but you took the action yourself and not really caring how that country is going to deal with it.
Well, and this is the thing, right? Like, so I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that the Trump administration very publicly has no idea what it's doing. And I say that not in the sense of like, oh, they're doing a thing I don't agree with. I mean, in the sense of they've been pretty clear that they actually don't know what the end goal is supposed to be here. Donald Trump gave an interview where he said that like perhaps the best thing that could happen would be like a Venezuela situation, right? Where like, they put in a new supreme leader, but the supreme leader is like, buds with Donald Trump, and then we can work with the regime and make Iran great again. MIGA. As he tweeted it out.
MAGA.
Yeah, MAGA. So that's great. But like, it's a wild thing to say, because what that means is that he has literally no idea how the Iranian regime works. There is already apparently a choice for the new supreme leader. It is the son of the old supreme leader.
And who just had all of his family killed by Americans.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's, probably not going to be super pro-U.S. at that point. I'm just going to say, also, the reason why he's been chosen as opposed to anybody else is not because he was the old dude's son particularly, but because he's a hardliner who is backed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, who are the massive, highly armed organization with more weapons than the Iranian military itself, which controls about a quarter of the Iranian economy.
Yeah.
And if the regime goes down, they lose everything.
Well, there it is.
And they're the ones with all the guns. So like, it's just amazing to me. This is not a regime that can surrender. Which is why Donald Trump recently just sort of said, apparently our new goal now is unconditional surrender by the regime.
Which is just, I mean, you might as well, it's like he's gone to a word jumble and he's just putting words in the refrigerator and just saying, unconditional surrender, a fucking gazebo. And just
well, I mean, it worked with Nazi Germany. It worked with Imperial Japan. We went to war until they unconditionally surrendered because,
that's what America does.
Well, that's like without any reference to the fact that World War II, America was attacked. It was a thing. It was in all the papers, and hundreds of thousands of Americans died. Yes. And it ended with the nuclear bombing of 2 cities in Japan, as well as fire bombings that wiped out just huge portions of Japanese infrastructure. It was hell. It was hell, but the American people were willing to see it through to the end because there was support for the war because America had been attacked.
Because America, yes.
Yeah, and this was clearly a war for like freedom and a defensive war, So it's the contrast with what's going on in Iran could not be sharper. Like Donald Trump wants a total war without mobilizing anything.
But as to back to what we're talking about, though, the people, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm thinking of a specific post here, but I think it's ridiculous for people to be telling them like they're not dumb. They get it. They know that Donald Trump is not great, and the American MAGA establishment and those people who back them aren't looking to free them or to instill democracy or any of that. It's clearly, it's a self-interested exercise to try to gain control over more resources and also to, I don't know, just, look cool. Who knows? But I think it's just important that we take note that it's if you're not from Iran or have Iranian families or relatives or connections, then just stick to the politics of it. Stick to the geopolitics. The geopolitics is more than enough to be talking about because it's changing day to day. Yep. And there's absolutely zero reason for us to be telling Iranians how to feel because they know what a dictator looks like.
Yep. Yeah.
There's going to be Iranians who were very sad. And one of the interesting things that's happened this week is that the public burial or funeral of the former Ayatollah had to be canceled because obviously it's a target, right?
Yeah.
Now, normally it wouldn't have been a target under normal circumstances. We'll talk about that in the next section. But so like it's not like the whole world has to, or this particular country has to share the same belief. Like imagine if somebody just taken a sniper bullet into freaking the White House, right? It's not every American's just going to be like, woohoo. All it's really going to do is coalesce people to against the actor. So I don't want to dwell on this much longer because we have a lot to talk about. This is a complicated episode because the two countries are at war and seemingly one of them doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. So let's take a break real quick and then we'll be right back. And we're back. So I know. Now we are going to continue our conversation on Operation Endless Quagmire. This is a weird thing because last week we were talking about the beginning of this war, and by the time we had stopped recording and I finally got to look at my phone properly, there were American casualties.
Right.
And so 6 Americans have died. And I understand the ratio of numbers of deaths to versus what's going on in Iran are going to be obviously much different. But
I think it's over 1,000, I think, Iranians have been killed so far to 6 Americans. However, other people have also been killed by Iranian missiles and what have you. I think 9 in the Gulf states. Right.
And so we are, I mean, like we were saying last week that, this is going to take a bad turn if Americans start dying, and Americans have started dying. And this is a war which was started with only about 2/3, like 63% or something support. When normally when America launches some missiles and, attacks bases or whatever, it's like 90%. Over 90% or 89%, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? That's a very high number you just said for the support at the start of this thing. Like, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that the support for the idea of a war against Iran did not have majority support, and already at the very beginning, it was getting down around 30% to 27%. I may have my figures wrong on that.
I remember seeing it last week, and I might be wrong, but either way, I have new numbers here, right, from the beginning of March, which was 5 days ago, which says 52% of Americans are opposed to the airstrikes, right? So it's still, obviously, it's not a popular war, and now Americans are dying from what can only be described as a complete and utter shit show of trying to conduct any operation. Now, I think we need to start with the press conference that was held by Pete Hegseth at the on Monday of this week, where he was trying to explain how this war, but it's not a war, but it is a war.
Right.
And he said that Iran was building, quote, a conventional missile system, which because they had already obliterated everything else, but then they were building a conventional missile system that they didn't negotiate. So that's why it happened. But this isn't a forever war, but there's no timeline to end the action. Trump says it will end easily. That's what he was saying on Monday. But Israel was then saying this will take as long as it will. right? So that was just Monday. And in the interim between now and then, the messaging from the White House and from the Department of War has just been chaos because they can't come to an agreement as to why they were doing this. I mean, you remember what Markwayne was saying?
Yeah. Like this is war, and also they declared war on us, and also this absolutely isn't a war. What's that? I literally just called it a war. Oh, that was a misspoke.
That was a misspoke.
That's a direct quote right there from current senator and future head of Department of Homeland Security, Markwayne.
Which we will get to that in a second. Yeah, Markwayne getting himself some kind of a promotion, maybe saving him from an election. I don't know if he's up for election this year, but it'd be interesting to see if he is. Basically, over the past week, the Trump administration have been giving everybody 4 or 5 different reasons per day as to why they're there, and also saying that we both will do this forever, and also we won't do this forever. And one of the reasons it's an issue about longevity is because of the disparity in the usage of munitions. Again, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but simple math here. So Iran is using very cheap, I'm assuming easier to make, propeller-driven bombs that fly.
Yes.
Those are drones.
A lot of Shahed drones, yes. Which, for those of you who are connoisseurs of our new drone warfare era, Shaheds have been a big part of Russia's sort of munitions package that it's been using in Ukraine. These are relatively slow drones. They fly low. They are hard to intercept, and they pack a punch. So Russia's been using them mostly against civilian targets because those are, well, much easier to hit, basically. So the use of Shaheds in war, this isn't new, and you would think that the American government would know about it because they've been supporting the Ukraine on and off, in its attempt to protect itself against the use of Shaheds. And in fact, Ukraine has gotten so good at dealing with Shaheds that currently Ukraine is sending help to the United States to advise them on how to deal with these things, because apparently the American government didn't think about, Shaheds, those are a thing. We should probably, protect ourselves and our allies against that.
Well, over the past week, America has, at least the last time I checked, I think it was Wednesday, the U.S. had used about 10% of one stockpile of missiles and 25% of another stockpile of missiles. Now, why does this matter? It's because Shahed drones cost about $20,000 to make.
Right.
And the missiles that America fires cost millions. So for every one missile that America shoots, right, and to take down a drone, right, that's millions of dollars going into the sky to take out a drone that only costs tens of thousands of dollars to make. And also got to think about the amount of fuel you got to put in there. You got to think about getting them it just becomes a much more expensive operation to shoot down however many drones they have. Now, America has also sank an Iranian frigate.
Yes, that's
this
right.
Week as well.
Which it must be said, this frigate, the reason why it was off the coast of Sri Lanka in the first place is that it had been engaged in joint naval freedom of the seas exercise with the Republic of India. It was unarmed, and it was, about as hors de combat as a naval vessel of the Iranian Navy could be. Yeah. The Americans had a submarine in the area, and they blew up the thing, which, arguably is well within the bounds of the laws of war. After all, it was a flagged military ship of a country with which the United States is at war. Wait, not at war. No, maybe kind of at war. Well, we'll figure it out later. So leaving aside the issue of whether or not the war exists and whether or not the war is legal under American law, like the decision to attack this frigate is defensible. But honestly, I think it's a bit shit, because this is an unarmed frigate, and the U.S. Navy could absolutely have captured it. Well, 100% have captured it.
But here's the deal, right? Like, whether or not it was okay to shoot or destroy the frigate, that happens in wartime. You take out enemy positions and vessels in wartime.
Absolutely.
And the Trump administration is working very hard to convince people that we're not in a war. So this is the bigger question, is that when this is, again, the issue with Congress having no genitalia, is that, like, the president has engaged in a war with another country. He has killed the leader of another country, which, again, is against the law in the United States. He's broken domestic law. He has ignored Congress, and they're just sitting there. Well, the Republicans are just sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, looking around, trying to figure out, which croissant to eat first. Right?
Well, of course. But this is the thing, and one of the fundamental problems in the American constitutional system, right? A lot of good things about it, but there are, no system is perfect, and this is one of the imperfections.
How dare you, sir?
I know, I'm saying it. I'm all radicalized and shit. But so, what I would argue here is that when the founders created the system, there wasn't a party system, right? Yeah, so absolutely. They thought they were creating a system where the main divisions of power would be between the institutions, between the legislature and the executive. The legislature would be desperate to maintain its authority. The executive would be desperate to maintain its authority. And so the two of them would balance each other out. And the fundamental problem is that once you start having strong parties, you can get a situation where, the legislature gets controlled by members of a political party who don't see the legislature as being of any value. Particularly, they don't see it as being an institution worth preserving. They see themselves as being the, good party men who are going to support the leader of their party, who is the president.
Right.
And so what you're sort of seeing here isn't, I think, a failure by Republican legislatures to defend Congress, because they don't even see that as being a thing that they should do in the first place. What they see themselves as is people who should be supporting Donald Trump in whatever he does, because he is the leader. They're authoritarians, you see.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of them are, but I think also going back to the whole idea that this America was created without parties in mind. What it was created with was the idea that incredibly rich white men would be able to run things and basically be a cabal amongst themselves.
Yeah, absolutely,
and trade the power amongst themselves, which happened for the first 5 or 6 presidents before they allowed every white dude to vote.
Right.
It was only effectively the richest, most powerful people in every state could, engage in the electoral process.
Right, and that's which is what the Electoral College was for, precisely so that the people wouldn't elect the president, but rather they would elect a council of wise men who would then choose a president. Yeah. Of course, the whole system immediately collapsed into, well, who are you going to choose the president? Obviously, the person who's going to pick the president you want to be president, So I think the attempt to insulate the American government from democracy was, doomed to failure, I think. I mean,
again, but I think that they definitely were trying. I don't think they foresaw the creation of political parties. Obviously, maybe they're just lying to George Washington, because that's the first thing they did. But yes. in the build up, it's like, okay, well, let's not create political parties. Let's just try to create one system, which makes sense when you have a common enemy. But once the common enemy disappears, and it's like, well, I want to win. How do you win? I win by being the leader of a faction. And you have the growing from there should be no political parties, so the president shouldn't campaign, to the vice president should always be this person who comes in second, and so on and so forth. All of which would have probably kept America a bit more even keeled, not the lack of enfranchisement for people. But imagine if the president and the vice president were just the person who finished first and the person who finished second. Imagine the chaos that would create, because then you couldn't be a partisan, dickhead. You just had to be, hopefully a decent leader, because then you have your opponent is basically number 2 and and is just waiting. And do you think that would have solved the party problem, right? So think about it.
No, because that it's exactly the existence of the parties that destroyed that system, because that's what it originally was, right? It was fine as long as it's George Washington as president and John Adams is the vice president, because we're all Americans and there really isn't a party system. What's that, John Adams? You're calling yourself a federalist now? Shut up. It's fine. Everything is fine. And then John Adams becomes president, And Thomas Jefferson, his big political rival, the head of the other faction, the Democratic Republicans, is vice president. And that lasts exactly 4 fucking years. Yeah. And immediately after that, everyone's like, oh, no, this doesn't work. This does not work. No. It's one of the first amendments they made to say, nope. Like you run on the same ticket. The president and the vice president, they're on the same ticket. They got to run as a pair. Yeah. Because that we can't have this nonsense again. That nonsense was nonsense.
But we can't have consensualism, and we can't have. I mean, it makes sense. And you're right. In a party system, in a system that you have a lot more control over the faction, you definitely don't want to give any freebies to the other faction. So, I mean, we've now veered very far away from the Iranian war, but I think it is important to understand, like the quagmire that America is in. Because when the president, like there have been no conversations of impeachment yet. There have been no serious conversations about, impeaching Hesketh, impeaching every person involved with this, because that's where we are. That's where we should be right now. Yeah.
That is the constitutional remedy for situations such as this.
And like, whether or not, you care or think what they did to Iran was right or wrong. The president has broken a very obvious law. This isn't Monica Lewinsky. This isn't, and in that case, the president had lied in a grand jury, I think a deposition, deposition?
Had told an untruth under oath.
Yes.
Which is, which is a thing that you can be impeached for, in the sense that the Congress impeached him for it.
Yeah, and he was impeached. Exactly. So it's again, this is one of the biggest issues with America. It's one of those powerful legislatures in the world, but they are refusing to use that power, or the Republicans are refusing to use that power, or so it seems. Let's take a little sidetrack here.
Yeah,
little sidetrack. Yeah. So we'll probably dip back into the Iranian war in a second, but
there's no getting away from it, Chris.
Well, not in the foreseeable future. Trump says at least a month. But
I've also heard until September. At least September.
At least September. No boots on the ground. I'm sure there will be no boots on the ground.
$1 billion a day, Chris.
$1 billion a day. Those missiles aren't cheap. But those shahads are. But I yesterday did have an amazing little thing pop up on my phone. Yeah. I was out with a friend, and then I had my phone on Do Not Disturb for reasons that you understand, Patrick.
Absolutely.
And I had seen that Kristi Noem had gotten a stanky boot.
Oh, she sure did.
Of Homeland Security.
She sure did. Yeah. Donald Trump, apparently, a day after a story came out where he was asking people, apparently, should I fire Kristi Noem? And I can only imagine that literally every single person he asked that was like, yes, you should immediately, because she's fucking terrible at her job, and also at insulating you from the horrors of what you've told her to do, So she's now getting moved to be, what is she going to be, like
a director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
She's going to be the new Nick Fury. She's going to be the new Nick Fury.
People who are listening to this may think that you're just making a funny joke, and it is a funny joke. It's a very funny joke. But the thing is, there's a really disturbing reality underlying that. When you say S.H.I.E.L.D., Chris, what exactly do you mean?
I mean, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I've only seen it in passing, but Trump is now assigning her to some kind of border shield position that is incredibly nebulous, but she will be what I just decided to call the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. What is S.H.I.E.L.D.? We don't know yet, but it is a thing that is, I'm going to put it, it's probably next to Doge. You know how that Doge office, and now they're going to have the S.H.I.E.L.D. office.
Of course,
and,
that makes sense.
Because it's not a demotion. You see, it's not a demotion. She's being shifted over. It's a lateral move.
Well, she's got a very fancy title. She's going to be the special envoy for the S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas.
The S.H.I.E.L.D. of the S.H.I.E.L.D. of the Americas.
Which is a very, very ancient and incredibly prestigious position that has existed for almost 24 hours, Chris.
Oh, yes, indeed. And to let you know how bad it is when you have to create the S.H.I.E.L.D. of Americas. Like I just wonder who sits in the White House with just a pipe and some glasses and over a typewriter to like deciding the ridiculous names to come up with. Doge. Okay, that was Elon Musk. That was a good one. Good one. Department of Government Efficiency. Oh,
Yeah,
we have to find a new thing. Yeah, we have to find a new thing for Kirsty Noem. Who? Kirsty Noem. She was the one who's in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, which is already remember when DHS was created? In the middle after 9/11.
Right after 9/11. So it has been around for about a quarter of a century now. And it was a terrible idea when it started. It has been a massive threat to American civil liberties. It has been, even aside from the fact that it's the most Orwellianly named thing you can imagine. Department of Homeland Security. I think it sounded better in the original German. So, seriously, it's just Americans don't say homeland. It's not an Americanism.
That was what was most concerning when they were like, "Oh, it's the Department of Homeland Security." Like, we don't do words like that in the States.
Yeah, we got our own weird political shit that we say. We don't even need to be stealing the word Heimat.
Yeah, it is weird, but so they created this new position for her. She's been swept aside, and let's take a moment to remember that she was very bad at her job. She was very good at posing for pictures and videos. When I was in the States last year, I saw ads with her in it, and it was like President Trump is doing this. I'm helping President Trump, and she'd have all her tactical on, and she'd be walking around with sunglasses, and making all the fun videos and doing all the fun things. But in reality, people died. Like American citizens died.
American citizens have been killed. American citizens have been shot. She has done more damage to the citizenry of the American Republic than I think almost anybody that I can think of outside of Donald Trump himself. So it's a hell of a thing. But it's funny you bring up those ads, Chris. Because the thing is, those ads are why she just got fired.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because apparently this $200 million ad campaign of her, talking about how Donald Trump is the greatest and she is doing her best to help the president in everything he does, blah, 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 right? She was asked about this when she appeared in front of Congress just a few days ago.
Yes.
And she was basically asked, why did you spend hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars on look at how cool I am commercials? Yes. What the fuck was that? And her response was to say, well, I Donald Trump told me to do it. The president told me to do it. He said explicitly, that I should make videos thanking him for what he's doing. So I made, and you can see that in the videos, I thanked him, which means something really interesting to me, that Kristi Noem does not understand that story makes Donald Trump look like the fucking most pathetic piece of nonsensical material that you can imagine. Yeah. Like, seriously, the story that, I'm such a cool guy, I need people to make television commercials costing hundreds of millions of dollars to thank me, because that's, nothing says quiet competence, Chris. Like a $200 million ad campaign.
The man draped his face outside the Department of Justice. The man put his face, they put Charlie Kirk's face, I believe, outside of some building as well. I mean, this regime is, it does feel like the wheels are starting to come off.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when they start putting pictures of people everywhere. But this Noem thing, where she's just like, well, I was asked to do so by the dear leader, and the dear leader gets what the dear leader wants. Why are you asking me this? Why am I even here? She should have just gotten up and left. But she eventually had to leave because she was fired. But she's now been replaced by, or she will be replaced by a guy named Markwayne Mullen, who we've already brought up once. In this episode, Markwayne. First off,
he is a senator from Oklahoma. And he is, I think it's fair to say, not the smartest Republican senator. He's not top of the pops when it comes to those who are, capable of putting forward a reasoned argument in favor of a position, to the point where he's the front man, apparently, for defending the war in Iran. And he managed to both say it wasn't a war and it was a war. And then when it was pointed out to him that he literally just contradicted himself, his response to say that was a misspoke, which, again, I'm bringing it up because it's just such a, the writers aren't even trying anymore. They're not even trying to be subtle, is what I'm saying.
You don't need to be subtle. Markwayne is just like, there are certain members of the House of Representatives who you could just see it. Like if somebody said, "Hey, Markwayne, I need you to go out there and defend Trump. He killed a whole bunch of kids." Yeah, okay, here it goes. Those kids had it coming. I'm Markwayne. Hey, Markwayne, we need to retract that all. It wasn't Trump. It was somebody else. Markwayne come out there and be like, Trump would never do anything like that. He is he's a God-fearing. Hey, Trump worships the devil now, Markwayne. Great. The devil and Donald Trump have been working hand in hand for years and years, and I, Markwayne Mullen, have always supported that. Hey, Markwayne doesn't support you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He's a man with no principles. He's a man with no dignity. So he's kind of perfect for this administration, really.
Well,
you know. So it's quite the thing. So, like, I think it's worth pointing out that when you say that the wheels are starting to come off this administration, I think you're right in quite a few different ways. And one of the ways that we haven't talked about yet, but definitely should, is the economy. Donald Trump took over the economy from Joe Biden, who'd been president for 4 years. And in those 4 years, the American economy went through some things. In particular, went through the nastiest bout of inflation that America had dealt with since the 1970s during the oil crisis, when, you know, a bunch of oil producing states were no longer selling oil to the United States. And that caused just huge inflation because everything in the U.S. relies upon oil, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and generally speaking, presidents have worked really hard to try to keep the price of oil low, right? And this, you know, particular surge in inflation under Joe Biden, some of it had to do with the invasion by Russia, or the invasion of Ukraine by Russia.
Yeah.
Russia is a major oil producer. The sanctions against Russia that followed the invasion, this did mean reworking how oil is supplied. And that obviously had an inflationary impact. There was also the overhang of, you know, getting the global economy started again after the pandemic. So it was a really big jump in inflation. And then things kind of worked themselves out. Inflation was coming down. It was down to, from 10% per year, it was down to around 3%, very close to the goal of 2% that the Federal Reserve sets, right? So, you know, job growth was really strong. People were talking about a soft landing, a really, really difficult thing to pull off. You know, so the American economy wasn't the best, but it was doing pretty well, actually.
And let's not forget about the Inflation Reduction Act and other legislative measures taken by the Biden administration
the CHIPS Act and what have you.
CHIPS Act and all that helped the American economy, helped American workers, and made it easier for the economy to get back on its feet and to become more sustainable.
That's the thing. So, like, I think, you know, I'm going to say that if you're grading the Biden administration on its economic policies, there's some things you might like, there's some things you might disagree with, but on balance, things could have been a hell of a lot worse. And we know that because Donald Trump got elected and started making things worse.
Absolutely.
Instead of having the strong job growth that we saw under Joe Biden, what we saw was in April, Trump came out with his Liberation Day tariffs. And since then, job growth has been not good.
Not good is a nice way to put it.
Oh my God. Like, seriously, like, to the point where you started having like this, you know, real job losses. Out of the last 9 months, 5 of those months have seen job losses in the United States. And January had quite strong job growth. This past January had quite strong job growth. A lot of people are starting to say to themselves, okay, maybe we're past the weirdness of the tariffs. Maybe things are going to start growing again. Maybe we can start dealing with, you know, inflation, which started going up again under Trump. Maybe we can deal with the cost of living crisis that has been pissing off Americans considerably.
Yeah.
And then Donald Trump decides this is the right time to invade Iran. And what ended up happening was immediately oil prices started shooting up. They've gone up over 10%.
That's because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That's because natural gas production has been halted, I think, in Qatar or the UAE. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the backbone of the global economy. And
that's the thing. So this move is kind of amazing because what this does is that in an election year, when Americans are already pissed off over rising prices, this is guaranteed inflation is going to increase. This is guaranteed higher prices at the pumps. There is talk about it getting up over $4 a gallon if this war does not end very soon. And the Trump administration has made it clear this war is just going to continue for as long as they feel like it.
And also, it's going to be over soon.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be over soon, but probably September. But also not until Iran unconditionally surrenders, which they will not do. And also, maybe we are going to send boots on the ground. Maybe we are going to literally invade Iran with hundreds of thousands of American troops, because it would take, I mean, honestly, I don't know that we have the troop levels necessary to actually invade and occupy Iran. It's huge. It is like the size of Western Europe, you know?
But you digress.
Yeah, I digress just a little. But so the end result is that in order to play imperial fantasy, Donald Trump has decided to do the one thing that will absolutely annihilate the Republicans in this coming election in November, which is to get into an unpopular war.
Yeah.
Which causes huge disruption to oil prices, leads to increases in prices for Americans. Like, even if you're an American who just doesn't really care about foreign policy, you're not really worried about like war. It's just not a thing that you're into, right? Who cares? You still care about things like, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have to pay more for all of my groceries? Am I going to be able to afford to drive my car?
Yeah.
And these are all things that Donald Trump has made much, 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 much worse just in the last week.
And I think the problem is that, as we keep on saying, I think it needs to be like drilled in very, very much here. There is no exit strategy, just like with Iraq. Just like with Afghanistan, there is no way that we see, unless we just stop bombing, right? Let's say we just stop bombing.
Declare victory and then go do something else, basically.
Yeah, declare victory and just have it to say, clean up, you're dead. Now sort something out, right? Yeah. Like, you've now created this whole, a hole in their leadership structure, which is probably going to be filled pretty soon. Yeah, but they're still there. It's just like with Venezuela. The regime is still there. So you can't you can just walk away, but it's not, they're going to walk after you. And with the economy, one of the reasons why food prices went up was because Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe. That is true. So they haven't been able to ship out as much. I think I remember some kind of deal that was trying to be struck between getting grain out, because they were able to supply grain to all different parts of the world. When they stopped, when they would stop doing that, that's when food prices went up, because we had to go to other places to get the grain as opposed to massive Ukraine. Right. Yeah. So engaging in these like kind of ill thought out, not thought out policies is only ever going to hurt you. And I mean, I think there's enough people who can obviously see these things. They may not know all of the intricacies of the geopolitics of it, but I think when you don't make the story to invade a country, when you don't lay the groundwork to say, you know, here's yellow cake uranium, you know, or you were attacked and this is where the attackers live. It's just overnight, I killed a guy. High fives, everybody. Overnight, we kidnap somebody. High fives, everybody. Also, we're going to get a sweet deal for oil companies. None of that's coming to you. The prices won't go down at the tank, but my friends are happy and they're going to get even more rich. High fives, everybody. Don't touch it with your dirty peasant hands. So this is the problem, is like every day this war drags on, like it just gets closer and closer to that 2003 point that we, those of us of a certain age, remember that when the Iraq war started, and I mean, I remember when the Afghanistan war started, and I'm like, that's where they are. Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Like, you may not like the fact, but like, that's where Osama bin Laden's supposed to be. Yeah. So, lo siento, guys. With Iraq, you're just kind of, I was just thinking to myself, I was probably still a sophomore in college when this happened, and I was just like, guys, does this make any sense? And I mean, the Republicans in the room were like, yeah, we're doing it. Yeah. I'm all like, nope. Ruh-roh. This is a problem.
Well, that's the thing. You can tell that the Bush administration knew it was going to be a big lift, right? Like, they had a huge amount of political capital from, the attack on 9/11, right? So George W. Bush had stood on ground zero with the bullhorn. His popularity was in the 90s. It was just an absurd level of popularity that hadn't been seen, since his father, George H.W. Bush, during the Operation Desert Storm, basically, right? So it was the kind of situation where apparently the regime felt the Bush administration felt that, well, we better make use of this. Now is the time to go after Iraq because we've always wanted to do that, and now we have the political space for it. But they still spent months building up the idea that Saddam Hussein was a massive threat. There were weapons of mass destruction literally pointed at us. They'd have we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud, as Dick Cheney put it. So they spent months, and they had Colin Powell destroy his reputation.
Absolutely.
Utterly ruin his reputation by lying to the world at the UN Security Council. They pulled out all the stops to get people on board the war. And that worked exactly as long as American soldiers weren't getting killed in large numbers. And the second they were, and also it was clear that, there were no weapons of mass destruction. Saw's guys, ha, 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 ha. I guess we're stuck here now. Yeah. The war became deeply unpopular. So unpopular, Donald Trump was able to become president by claiming that he had always been against the war in Iraq, unlike that warmonger Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that's right.
So Donald Trump literally got elected on lowering prices.
Yes,
not doing endless wars in the Middle East.
No more forever wars.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And now he's literally, I think he's basically betrayed every single, and also releasing the Epstein Files. That was the other thing that he said he was going to do. He's now betrayed. Let's say he's betrayed every promise that he's made.
Well, let's take a shift here. As I said, we probably dip back into the Iranian war because it's huge. But we need to also talk about kind of one of the last things we're going to talk about is the subpoena of Pam Bondi.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you were saying just before we started recording that you felt like this was an example of the crack in the dam starting to show.
Yes.
Because Kristi Noem getting chucked out, she is the first member of the cabinet in Trump's second administration to lose her position. Right.
That's true. Yes.
And it's interesting because the people laying into her were not just Democrats at the sessions, right? And it's interesting that Pam Bondi has just been subpoenaed because the Republicans control the House. The only way she could be subpoenaed, which takes a majority vote in the House, is for enough Republicans to break off and join the Democrats. And 5 of them did. So I think we're starting to see that, there is a faction of Republicans in Congress who know they may not be willing to go against Trump directly.
No.
But they know that they need to be seen to be on the side of, but his advisors are bad and have to go, right? The czar is getting bad advice.
He's starting to look a little tired, guys.
Isn't he just?
And this is
literally.
Well, come on. I don't. But this is, I think, the important thing to note here is that I was saying that, the cracks are starting to appear in the dam. And I don't think that they want to directly go after Trump because maybe he'll pull it out of the bag. Maybe something will happen. Maybe the National Guard prevents people from voting in November or whatever. Who knows what the deal is. But right now you're starting to see the legislature starting to realize that, or starting to use the power that the Republicans clearly know they have. The Democrats know they have the power, but they're in the minority, so they can't do anything with it. So, but when you're able to pull over Nancy Mace, and you're just because the narrative here is we're trying to protect kids, we're trying to protect the story, we're trying to protect the kids who are who have produced these allegations, which was another reason why Pam Bondi got subpoenaed. It was because a bunch of I think 4 files were scrubbed from the Epstein file list from the Department of Justice. Illegally.
It should be pointed out they were scrubbed illegally because the Epstein Files Transparency Act are very clear on what you can redact and what you have to reveal. And so they broke the law in order to try to hide this stuff.
And the allegations on this particular FBI notice were specifically about Donald Trump and a teenager, a 13-year-old teenager, and a 13-year-old kid, and the fact that they disappeared during the chaos of the beginning of the Iranian war, and it eventually popped back up when they said, "Oh, we thought they were just duplicates. We were taking them down." There are millions of files on that site. To isolate 4 and be whoopsie, we didn't want to put up duplicates. That just doesn't hold, right? Yeah. And so they're starting to realize, I think they're starting to realize, because there's also, if you're not permanently online and permanently on X and all that, there is an exodus of the conspiracy theorist douchebag crowd. They are flying from the ships as fast as possible. Candace Owen was like one of the first ones. Tucker Carlson's been gone for about 6 months.
Oh yeah.
You know, like they are trying to find their lifeboats because they see this thing as a sinking ship, and they are running, and they should be running because, you know, like during the Clinton deposition, because we talked about it last week, right?
Yeah.
The video of that was released. And Hillary Clinton, I won't go into all of it, but she said two very important things. Why am I here? And none of you decided to ask Alex Acosta anything. He created he created the sweetheart deal for Epstein, and yet I see him not here. And the other one was that the FBI interviewed people who made allegations against Trump 4 times. And she said, as a lawyer, I know 4 times. When the FBI investigates something 4 times, it's not for no reason.
Yeah. And that's 100% the case. Like, the thing is, like, obviously, so this is an allegation that has been made. Whether that allegation is true or false, we can't say. We don't have enough information. But what we can say is, if it was obviously false, there wouldn't even have been a second interview. You know, 4 interviews in a row suggests that there was something concerning enough, maybe in the allegations that were made, maybe in things that were not explicitly made in the allegation, but something is up there and it needs to be public. Because, I mean, I don't know if you've read what the allegations are, but like they're quite bad. You know, like they are that he pushed a 13-year-old girl's head down to his exposed penis, and then she bit it because she didn't want to, you know, engage in fellatio because she was 13 years old and a child. And then she says Donald Trump hit her in the head and then threw her out of the room. So, like, it's bad. It's a really bad allegation. And if the FBI interviewed her 4 times over it, like, even if that isn't what happened, if something even like that happens, my God.
Well, I mean, there was a time when the allegation of loan would have been career-ending.
Well, yeah.
And you know, Trump did spend a lot of money paying, you know, what's her name? I can't remember her name. The porn star.
Yes.
Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels.
That's
as he spent a lot of money paying her, which is where he got those 34 counts from. This is another thing that Clinton had said. She's like, you know, you look for patterns of behavior, even if like, and it's like if a guy has been you know, legally adjudicated for assault, was assaulting, raping.
I mean, it was literally sexual. It was literally sexual assault under New York law. But the only reason it's sexual assault under New York law is that under New York law, it is not rape unless you use your penis.
Right.
Anything else, and it's not rape, it's sexual assault. So I think Americans and our listeners may have the mistaken belief that sexual assault is like a less serious form. Right. Yeah. Like where if you know, because it's a broad category, it could include anything from, you know, grabbing someone's ass when they do not want you to, because that is absolutely sexual assault, up to what Trump is alleged and adjudicated to have done, which is insert his fingers inside of someone without their consent, you know? So it's so it's I'm going to call it rape because the judge said, this is what we would understand as rape.
Yeah. And so, and yet these allegations, you know, people like Markwayne Mullen, people like Kristi Noem, that doesn't bother them at all. They are totally cool with maintaining their relationship with the Trump administration and being part of it. And people like Pam Bondi, whether it's true or not true, right now there is the impression that she is protected pedophiles.
Well, and I mean, she has, because she is the Attorney General of the United States of America. She is in charge of releasing the Epstein Files, and they have deliberately redacted illegally the names of pedophiles when the whole point of the Epstein Files Transparency Act was to reveal those names. They've also revealed the names of victims when the whole point of the Epstein Files Transparency Act was to protect the names of the victims. So she is either a massive incompetent who needs to go a year ago, or she is deliberately protecting pedophiles and breaking the law to do it. Like, she needs to be impeached. She needs to go.
And thus she's been subpoenaed. So we've talked enough about this. I think that we should end on some of the complicated news. There was an election. There was a primary in Texas.
There wasn't there?
There was a primary in Texas.
This is a little bit of a story. It's interesting.
Yeah. And it was James Tallarico versus Jasmine Crockett
for the Democratic nomination.
For the Democratic nomination, and there was like Ken Paxton versus a bunch of other Republicans in Texas as well. This is to be the senator. It was Ken Paxton versus two other guys.
Well, yeah, one of whom is the current sitting senator, John Cornyn.
Oh, right, John Cornyn. Yeah,
I know. It's very funny because John Cornyn should be the overwhelming favorite here, but he admittedly came in first in this little primary, but he didn't get a majority, which means that this is going to go to a second round election, I believe in May. And so there was actually some rumors that Donald Trump was going to endorse Cornyn and try to encourage Paxton to drop out, because Ken Paxton is the Attorney General of Texas. He is a massive crook in the sense that he's been under investigation for financial crimes for years. But of course, those investigations haven't gone anywhere because he's the Attorney General.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So he's also cheated on his wife. And he's just a real scumbag, just a 100% scumbag. So like the idea was that Trump would endorse Cornyn and force Paxton out. But Paxton's the MAGA guy. Yeah. You know, so the rumor caused a huge uproar by online MAGA. They were like, you can't do that. Cornyn's a rhino. You can't back him and throw away Paxton, who's such a great, warrior for Trump. And Ken Paxton let it be known, no one can push me out, not even Donald Trump. I will not leave. I will fight this thing down to the end. So
and he did.
And
and the final tally was that John Cornyn got 41.9% of the vote. Ken Paxton got 40.7% of the vote, and the third person came in third, who basically prevented it from being over 50%, was a guy named Wesley Hunt. Wesley, what are you doing? 13.5% to Wesley Hunt, which is not bad with the, especially in Texas.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, he's really, he's shown that he has some kind of political backing. Good for him, especially good for him for, forcing this thing into a runoff so that Cornyn and Paxton this is already the most expensive Republican primary in the history of Republican primaries. It's already been a huge, huge expenditure of money that is not, infinite, right, for the election. So just a huge amount of money has been burned. It's going to keep being burned for the next several months. This is kind of a big deal for the Republicans.
On the other side with the Democrats, we've had James Tallarico, Jasmine Crockett, and another person called Ahmad Hussein. Oh, sorry, Ahmad Hassan. Sorry. And that was a much more complicated task because you had, if you don't know who Jasmine, let's start with Jasmine Crockett, who is a firebrand in the House of Representatives. She
rising star.
Yeah, she referred to Marjorie Taylor Greene before she resigned as what the bleach blonde butch body.
Exactly.
She didn't hold back, and she was she was very well seen, and obviously on the left she was well liked. And then you had a guy named James Tallarico, who I put him as like the Democratic Christian.
That's fair.
He's a Democratic. He's a very religious religious
seminary
person.
Student.
He's a seminary student.
Yeah, he's like basically someone who studied to be a pastor. So he wears his religious convictions on his sleeves. He's also very clear that he does not believe it's right to use his religious convictions to force them on anyone else. So he very much he presents basically as socially liberal, but guided by Christian convictions that lead him to the conclusion that, social justice is good, actually. And,
he's more of a New Testament guy as opposed to an Old Testament guy. He's a guy who believes in hey, Jesus said everybody, when you welcome people into your house or to your country, foreigner and local or whatever, you don't make these, divisions. And the Republicans cannot stand him because
of course
he's the dude who can cut through to some of those people who went MAGA. you know. And so anyway,
some of the religious people who've been willing to look past their convictions in order to support Trump, basically.
Yes, some of them. The ones who have definitely done it, knowing exactly what they're doing, there's a different word for them. Yes. Tallarico. So, but the issue was that Texas had gerrymandered its districts. They really wanted to screw over the Democrats, and they also wanted to create a fight between Tallarico and Crockett. This was the source so that I don't know if you remember the Stephen Colbert incident where he couldn't put Tallarico's interview on the television because the FCC chairman, who was a Trump stooge, basically said if you put him on, you got to put on Jasmine Crockett, and they're like, well, she's already been on, but whatever. So they didn't put it on television. Right. So this is the outcome of this election was that Tallarico won and Crockett lost. But but we couldn't be sure about that at the time because people are having trouble getting into the polling stations.
Yes, because, in Dallas County. Yeah. In Dallas County. Apparently, the rules were, and this was a new rule, because that's always great. You love a new rule in the middle of an election, was that you had to vote at your local voting center and not at the consolidated voting centers that people had to vote at before then. So people were showing up to vote at the place they had been voting at for years and told, no, you can't vote here. You have to vote over there.
You've got to go across town.
Yeah, which is always great because, in America, you're not, there's no requirement that you get time off to vote. Like there's no day off for voting. There's no, you got to ask your boss. You got to take it on your lunch break.
And doesn't voting close at like 7:00?
Yeah.
So it's not like here in the UK where it closes at 10.
Exactly. So this is a situation where this kind of fuckery could have really caused some major trouble. So the Crockett campaign went before a judge, and a judge did rule that, okay, we're going to have to keep the polls open later, precisely to deal with this. But it's a real indication of just what kind of fuckery can happen when the people who run the elections are not interested in making sure everyone who has the right to vote has a chance to vote.
Yeah. Oh, and also the Texas Supreme Court, I think, reversed the original court order to keep it open. Or there was something about going to the right polling place. So basically, at first it looked like we didn't know who was going to win, and Tallarico was taking it in stride. But over time, it became very clear that he was going to win because even if he got over 50% of the vote, he got 52.4% of the vote. Jasmine Crockett got 46.2% of the vote, and Ahmad Hassan got 1.3% of the vote. Not even close, like what was going on with Republicans. People came out to vote for him, but it seems that it's not just, for lack of a better term, white people who came out to vote for him. It was also Latinos. Latinos that had been gerrymandered into Republican districts.
Yes. And this is one of the biggest parts of this story. So much of the whole gerrymandering war that has happened over the last several months that Donald Trump instigated because, he likes starting wars that he's very bad at winning. So much of it was predicated on the idea that there had been a huge epochal shift in Hispanic American voting habits so that the Republicans were going to be getting a much bigger chunk of the Hispanic vote. And consequently, they were going to be able to lock themselves into just permanent majority status in Texas, right? That they were going to be able to seize a huge number of seats otherwise held by Democrats. And so they've gerrymandered and they've packed a whole bunch of districts to have way more Hispanic voters. And now it actually seems like that may have been a terrible decision because it seems like Hispanic Americans don't like the Trump administration because they've declared war on Hispanic Americans and they've killed a bunch of them and thrown them in jail and deported them, even though they're citizens. So now we are sitting in a situation where
more people voted in the Democratic primaries than voted in the Republican primaries.
Yep.
You're sitting in a situation where your gerrymandered districts are producing better results for the Democrats than they were ever supposed to.
Yep.
And your standard bearer will have to continue to fight while the Democrats are able to coalesce their power behind one person. And that one person is not nearly as easy to attack as Jasmine Crockett would have been to attack for various reasons in Texas. But one of them was that a quote came out that she had made years earlier about Latinos, which wasn't favorable. And obviously there are ructions there, but in the Democrats, but where we are right now is that I'm not saying like Tallarico's going to walk it, but now it's a very competitive race in Texas, and the Democrats have now more time to prepare, plan, and hopefully get their shit together to try to get this Senate seat. So we are. Go ahead.
It's not a guarantee. It's in no way, like, I think the most likely outcome is the Republicans keep that Senate seat. Yeah. But this is about as perfect a storm in favor of the Democrats as you could possibly get. The only thing that can make it more perfect is if after an incredibly bruising, bloody, and vicious primary on the Republican side, that Ken Paxton ends up winning. He's about the only person who would be even more likely to lose than Ted Cruz was. And Cruz came close to losing. He
did come close to losing last time. He came pretty close to losing, yet it's Texas, and they always, at the last minute, are able to keep people like Cruz in office. Yay.
Yeah. So I think if it's Paxton, I think honestly, at that point, I put it like close to a 50-50 shot, which is not what the Republicans need right now.
And that's probably not what they thought when they had rigged these systems to work for them. So we've been talking about this for a while. I think that's as much time as we have. I may even have to cut some of this down. maybe not.
Godspeed, you good
See
sir.
If you can find where the cut is, if there even is one.
If you correctly identify it, I will buy you a beer if you track me down first and provide proof of, proof of citizenship and all the rest.
Proof of citizenship. We won't get into that one this week. But that's all for this week. And as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we are doctors.
Not doctors.
Good night.